This is Robert Mardlacci, CEO of C21 Canada, and welcome to our C21 Canada Learning Series, Accelerating Changes That Matter, in conversation with Sean Slade, who is a member of the BTS Spark team on his new book, Questioning Education, and his new role at the C21 Board of Advisors. Thank you for joining me, Sean.
Thank you very much, Robert. Very happy to be here.
A little bit about Sean. Sean Slade is a global education leader, speaker, author, and policymaker with over 25 years of experience spanning 5 countries and 4 continents. He's head of education for North America at BTS Spark, a global education not-for-profit focused on developing the next generation of education leaders. He's also co-founding member of UNESCO Chair on Global Health and Education, a member of the OECD's Future of Education 2030, which I'm honored to be part of, and a 100 Ed Global Ambassador and an NBC Today's social and emotional learning expert. Most recently, is author of a new book, Questioning Education, and his newest C21 Board of Advisors membership is going to be something we'll be touching on. Thank you again, Sean. Wow, you've been a busy man. Tell us about your global expertise and in learning and innovation as a leader, and what inspired that?
Yeah, well, as you can probably tell, or as the listeners can tell from the accent, I'm originally from Australia. So I spent a lot of my teaching career teaching internationally. I was in Italy for 5 years, taught in South America, in Venezuela, obviously back in Australia. So I've always had a sort of a global appreciation. When we moved here about 18 years ago to the US, I just found that a lot of the work that was happening in education was resonating from the US and into other parts of the world. That's both the good and the bad coming out of US education. So what's been really interesting is to see how education seems to flow and seems to move like a tide across the world, and then sort of comes back again with different regions taking part and having influence. And so really the last 10, 12 years of my career has been a lot of work with some of these global institutions that you were mentioning, like the OECD, UNESCO, Global Education Leaders Partnership, WISE, who are based out of Qatar, all focused around these ideas about what is education for, where is it heading, and how can we help it move there.
Thank you for that. And very timely, your new book, Questioning Education. Can you discuss some of the themes and topics? And no doubt the pandemic was a catalyst.
Oh yeah, it was a catalyst for me in two ways. One, it gave me and others, well, in a number of ways. One, it gave me and a number of others time to reflect, gave us a little bit of home time as well, so we could pick up a few of these extra ideas. But as I've said also to many people, is I think we'll actually look back at this period in about 5 years' time and then reflect on what a big watershed the pandemic was, not just for education, but for society. So this book, Questioning Education, really comes out of all three of those reasons. Enough time to think, enough time to do, and some questions being raised by the pandemic. And what I'm doing in Questioning Education is posing the questions about why we have an education system and what questions we should be asking of that education system. And the tagline of it is moving from what and how to why and who, because I put the premise that we have the content, the what, and the skills, the how, as the two primary planets in my education solar system. And we don't worry about who's being taught or why they're being taught until a long time afterwards. And it's my hypothesis that we should be flipping that. Have the why in the center, worry about the who, and you worry about the what and the how later on.
Talk to me about where you get your inspiration. You've got a global lens, many lenses that you bring into the equation. That's powerful stuff. Some of the top leaders that we've seen in, Canada have been part of the Commonwealth, had a very tight alliance with Australia,
Mm.
and we've seen some really incredible work coming out of there, and certainly thank you for being on this side of the pond so you can work more closely with us. It's a gift, if you will.
Yeah, well, hopefully I can learn things as well from what's happening, across Canada. I've always seen Canada as almost like a cold version of Australia, or maybe Australia's a warmer version of Canada. I'm not sure, but there's a similar ethos for public service, for public institutions, for understanding the rationale and reason for things. It doesn't seem to chop and change as quickly as things do here in the US. So I find there's a lot of similarities between why we have an education system and the discussions we have in Australia and those that go on in Canada. You look at the work of Michael Fullan, you look at the work of Andy Hargraves, who's now based in Ottawa. Um, you look at George Couros and other people in Canada, and they're all pushing these ideas and boundaries, and a lot of those ideas, reflecting back to the previous question, you start to see flowing across the world and getting picked up by similar nations and similar systems. You asked about sort of inspiration and thinking, and I suppose it's many of those people I mentioned, along with, say, Dennis Shirley and Parsi Sahlberg, who's now in Australia. People who are not afraid to poke holes at systems, and not to say that those systems need to be destroyed, but poke holes in order to test them out and say, all right, if you believe this, then let's really poke at it and make sure that it's there for a reason and it works. I've never been happy with sort of status quo. Doesn't mean I want to change everything, but I'm happy to question everything. Yeah, I think I've lost your audio there, Robert. And we may have frozen as well. So what I'll do is I'll keep talking in case if my side is still going. What's we've been really reassuring as well the last couple of years and some of this global work is that these groups that I've been working with have all been asking those questions about the purpose of education, and there seems to be a
Okay.
similarity in the direction that they're going, like looking at well-being, looking at what I used to call the whole child, the development of more than just academics. And what's really nice is you're seeing this not just from one organization like UNESCO or OECD, you're seeing it from a myriad of organizations, all looking at this is where education should be moving. It's very much in tune with the work of Sir Ken Robinson, the late Sir Ken Robinson, as well, about moving away from that factory response of education.
Fascinating. Well, thank you for that, and sorry about the technical glitch, but
That's okay.
on occasion, technology fails us, but you persevered and adapted. The pandemic taught us a lot of things. The bubonic plague spawned the Renaissance era. I think we're in for something really special
Yeah.
post COVID. We're seeing a really pent up desire to better understand where things are going through the publications that we produce, and the number of the eyeballs that are gazing at the information. And let's explore, from a global perspective. The OECD did some excellent work around the future of education to add clarity to it. We had the lead researcher, Dr. Tracy Burns, speak at
Mm.
our summit, and I would love for you to present at our summit this fall in Ottawa in partnership with the Ottawa Catholic Board. Talk about serendipity. We have Dr. Andy Hargraves from Ottawa U, Michael Fullen, who you mentioned, will be speaking, and also partnering with the local college too. We want
Oh,
to have
nice.
that entire spectrum covered. But courageous leadership really was something that emerged out of the pandemic. And talk to me about that very fact, and some of the leaders you'll be interacting with at C21 are some of the top in the country.
Mhm. Yeah. We actually came out with a white paper study about a year or so ago called Messy Leadership. And it was basically a study of both school leaders, but also business leaders, and the leadership traits that they exhibited to allow them to thrive in the first year of the pandemic. And then we sort of mirrored that with the ones that didn't show those same things. And the word messy, or the acronym messy, um, works for two reasons. One, because it was a very uncertain, messy time. You had openings, closings, masks on, masks off, hybrid, changing policies every couple of days or every couple of months, and so it was a messy time, and we were all learning how to cope. Um, so it works for that. The other way that it works is the acronym that we developed out of it highlights the mindsets that these leaders who thrived were demonstrating. And it was multiple perspectives. So, getting other points of view, inviting other stakeholders in for discussions, not being that one person that knows everything or thinks they know everything and leads the way. The E was emotional connection. So it's really making sure that you're engaging with your colleagues and your staff, creating those relationships. It's funny how in education we know that relationships work for the students and with the students. And guess what? They also work with the adults and the teachers and the people in the district office. The two S's were sensing the future, which means if you don't know where the future is going to lead, then be prepared to do lots of little action research projects. So, sort of throw the 12-month or 5-year strategic plan in the trash can and try lots of little things. Seizing momentum was an understanding, sort of like the Carpe Diem Dead Poet Society, that now is the time for change. And this is a period where we're going to see a lot of change. And if we want to have influence over that change, we need to step up and make those decisions now. And the why was it's a bit of a cheat, but it's your ego. So we took the why of your, but it's really ego. And it's the leaders that were able to show vulnerability and say, I don't know, what do you think? Rather than diminishing their role of leadership, it actually built their role because it allowed others the space to come in. When you're that captain of the ship that supposedly knows the answer and says, follow me, we're going this way, you don't allow space for anybody else to come in with suggestions, ideas. You don't empower your team. You're basically just leading and they're following in lockstep. So we sum it up as well by saying it's a more of a human side of leadership. So it's really bringing yourself into the professional realm. For too long we've been told to keep that at the door, and what we're finding now is that no, actually bringing your personality, your emotions, your human side into your work environment is beneficial.
Well, thank you for that, Sean. And I'm fascinated by the work that you do at BTS Spark. Talk to us a little bit about your evolution and how you ended up in North America, and some of the services that you currently offer. How many years is it for you now? In
Still recently, well, in the US, I've been 18 years, but with
Right,
BTS Spark in North America, we've only been around for about 2.5, 3 years. So, so BTS Spark um, began. So going back one step, so BTS Spark is the not-for-profit practice of the larger BTS company, and BTS is focused around leadership development, and they originated in Sweden and a global. And they work with the Fortune 500 companies, the Googles, the Cokes, the Chevrons. BTS Spark is the not for profit practice that focuses on education and nonprofits.
brilliant.
We've been around in Australia. I didn't know this, but for about 7 years, we've had an office in the UK, serving the UK and Europe for about 5 years, and then in North America, like I was saying, for about 2.5 and 3. And what's really interesting about it, and it fits into my educational sort of philosophy, is we're not doing educational leadership in terms of instructional leadership. So it's not walkthroughs and budgets and school improvement plans and accountability. It's the human side of leadership. It's transformational leadership. So we have 33 mindsets that we use as a scaffold or a frame. And then we deliver coaching to leaders in short sprints of roughly 100 days around key themes such as leading in uncertainty, resilience, difficult conversations, well-being, um, creating cultures of care, changing the way the school operates and the way the schools and the communities function. And we target school leaders, and they're not just the people with the title, but anybody who is a school community leader from district level through to the classroom. And we coach them on how to make these changes and how mindsets that they have are going to influence their behavior and then change their actions. And it's an area that we haven't really targeted or focused on in education. We've done the instructional leadership. We've done things around well-being or social emotional learning for students. We very often have, or too often have, ignored the adults and the leaders in the school.
Well, fascinating, and kudos to you for your passion and the impact that you've made to date. You clearly, bring a lot to the equation from your global lenses and expertise. And we're really excited to have you joining the board of advisors at C21 Canada Canadians for 21st Century Learning and Innovation. And our seven C's have truly come of age, because when you don't have a clear view of what's coming, it's those pliable skills that need to be ingrained, from critical thinking, the problem solving, and computer digital skills and communication.
Mm.
Is so vitally important. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. From my basis as well, the work I was doing previously was all focused around the whole child. The work I'm now leading is focused around the whole educator, the whole leader. So leadership is more than just being able to do a schedule or just being able to set up an improvement plan. It's around those, as you were saying, those problem solving, creativity, design thinking, empowering a team to understanding what the vision is, where you're heading. It's all of those skills on how you relate to others, but also how you understand and relate back to yourself as well.
Well,
And I just think it's at a critical time.
Thank you so much for this, Sean. Any final thoughts on your hope for the future?
I'm always optimistic. I think most of us who've remained in education are optimistic. I see good things ahead of us. I think we're coming to a realization that education is about developing everybody's potential, but also developing the societal or the community potential as well. And so I think we're finally going to start to um, grasp that and hopefully enhance that. And really looking forward to the work with C21. It's going to be a great year.
Likewise, and looking forward to hosting you at the Toronto Summit in May. Sean, that was Sean Slade, Head of Education at BTS Spark, for today's Canada Learning Series, Accelerating Changes That Matter podcast. My name is Robert Merglaunchy, co-founder and CEO of C21 Canada. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve